I really enjoy spending time outdoors, which means I have a lot of specialty clothing for outdoor activities. My husband and I really love going to outfitters, sometimes when we're traveling, but a lot of times just like for a Saturday afternoon, you end up at the outfitters looking at all the different options that we have for outdoor activities, for activewear, even for leisure wear and lounge wear. But something I'd never done before was sew that for myself. So I started to wonder what would happen if I challenged myself to go on a trip where I was doing challenging outdoor activities, but every single item that I took with me was something I sewed for myself. This is the story of that project where I hiked the Italian Dolomites in handmade gear. This is a video series for my online subscription club, the League of Dressmakers, where we tackle adventurous sewing projects together as a community. I decided to set this challenge for myself where I was going to take the supply list for this challenging hiking trip in the Italian Dolomites, source all the materials, the fabrics, the textiles, the findings, and the supplies, and find the patterns so that I could make my own outdoor gear. I wear a lot of yoga pants and wool shirts and rain gear, and I have learned through hard experience the value of having exactly the right clothes for every circumstance. That includes when I travel, where I have learned that the wrong clothes can ruin good plans. So it was exciting for me to really tackle this project from the ground up, identifying all of these technical fibers, all of these textiles that I'd never used before, different patterns I'd never sewed with, and even different techniques like fusible waterproofing for seams or different findings and tools that I'd never needed before for things like hiking gaiters. Some of these like nano textiles, these sort of next level things, cargo pockets for convertible hiking pants, even ultra warm weatherproof gear for things like gloves or compression bags, all so that I could build a wardrobe to go on this week-long hike in the Alps. And in the end, that is what I did. I did not take a single garment that I had not sewed for myself. Some of the patterns I sewed were things that I had made previously. Others were things that I had always dreamed of making, but kind of set on the back burner because I wasn't prioritizing them. But in the end, every single thing I took was something that I made by hand. And along the way, for the League of Dressmakers, I had my camera running so that I created step-by-step videos of 6 different major projects and a few different bits and pieces along the way, along with compiling an enormous resource list of resources, textiles, shopping links, tips, techniques, skills, mistakes, flaws, errors, pattern companies, all kinds of things so that you can do this for yourself. And the thing is, it's not just activewear like if you want to go hike the Italian Alps like I did. A lot of what I discovered applies to sewing any of your own clothing, especially if one of your goals is to avoid redundancy and focus on making the best quality garments you can, things that are going to last a lifetime. So I made fleece hoodies and rain jackets and leggings that I'll wear to yoga or to lounge around watching TV. I rigorously field tested with the help of my children, my rain gear and everything else. And then we flew to the gorgeous, oh my gosh, the beautiful Italian Alps and field tested everything else. Some days we had an altitude gain of over 2,000 feet. Every day we were hiking across some of the most beautiful landscape you can imagine for hours at a time. The weather was actually unseasonably warm for this part of the world, but that meant that I get to try everything out. The pants, the shorts, the shirts, the rain gear, and then out the window we could literally see the cows coming home as I was packing and unpacking my gear. I'll be honest, as someone who sews their own clothing, this particular challenge is one of the most challenging, one of the most exciting and difficult and rewarding things I have done, because the amount of research necessary to take sewing skills that I already had, but then identify the places where maybe I needed to supplement my skills was really exciting and interesting. I was looking at things that I hadn't done before, textiles I'd never needed. I was utilizing skills I already had but hadn't applied in these situations. And it was tremendously exciting to recognize exactly how much I already know, but then kind of stuff that I didn't know, and fill in those gaps. So putting all of it on camera for the League of Dressmakers and then bringing it back to share with them after the fact, it's really emboldened me. It has made me feel a lot more confident in my ability to sew absolutely anything that I want to sew. And then doing all of this hiking out in the Alps has made me want to come home and make everything. It has given me a different attitude toward the quality and sustainability of the clothing that I make, and it has given me a different attitude toward the price tags of the things that I see in stores. I think a lot of us who sew our own clothing already look at garments in the stores and think that way, but there was something about sewing activewear. There was something about being like out in this really rugged environment where if my clothing failed, there was no backup. I couldn't just go home and grab something different. And in point of fact, one of my pairs of leggings did pop a seam while I was there. So I learned the hard way. Like when I say I field tested all of this gear for our members at the League of Dressmakers, I am dead serious. I took this out into the wilderness, hiked around for hours at a time, got back to a hut at the end of the day where they had red wine on tap, and drank a glass of wine while thinking about exactly what I had achieved that day in clothes I sewed myself. One of the parts that I didn't expect was that the people who were on this trip with me were so supportive. I kind of thought that they would look at me and be like, really? You're the girl who sewed her own clothes? And they absolutely did not. These were friendly, warm, supportive, excited people who looked at the idea of not just tackling this challenging hike, but also tackling the idea of bringing Handmade with me as a worthy, achievable, exciting goal, and they were jacked to be part of it. So bringing all of this footage back home to share with the League of Dressmakers is really, really empowering for me. I love the idea that I went out into the wilderness with my handmade everything. I took pictures, I took video, and I can bring it home and talk about what worked and what didn't, and how that informs the rest of my sewing as I move forward kind of into the rest of my life. Some of the garments that I made, I will treasure for decades to come, and I can't wait to share all of it with my members at the League of Dressmakers. You can join us at League of Dressmakers, LEAGUE of dressmakers.com.